He shielded the alien beauty from the blast's fury, waking to find himself encircled by the marketplace incident. The morning sun of Vertex Prime cast strange orange shadows through the atmospheric dome as Marcus Chen adjusted the hydraulic manifold on his workbench. 3 years had passed since he'd left Earth Coalition forces, trading his rifle for a wrench, his combat armor for grease-stained coveralls. The neutral trade station, floating at the intersection of 7 major space lanes, had become his refuge from memories that still visited him in the darkness. Marcus worked for Old Crix, a 4-armed Bendari who ran the most honest repair shop in the lower districts. The work was simple, the pay decent, and most importantly, nobody asked questions about his past. That morning started like any other, with the familiar hum of fusion generators and the distant chatter of 100 different species conducting business in the sprawling marketplace outside. The explosion changed everything. Marcus had stepped out to grab lunch from a vendor when he noticed her, a small Zellarian child, perhaps 6 standard years old, with the distinctive silver skin and luminous violet eyes of her species. She was playing with a holographic butterfly, completely absorbed as it fluttered between the market stalls. What caught Marcus's attention wasn't the child herself, but the way everyone else was carefully avoiding that particular section of the market. His soldier's instincts, dormant but never dead, sparked to life. The crowd's movement was wrong, too deliberate, too coordinated. 3 figures in merchant robes were converging on the child's position, their movements too purposeful for casual shopping. Marcus's hand instinctively went to his hip, finding only tools where his sidearm used to rest. The child giggled as her butterfly led her toward a stack of shipping containers. Marcus saw it then, the telltale shimmer of a plasma charge hidden among the crates, its timer already counting down. The 3 robed figures were backing away, their mission apparently complete. Time compressed. Marcus's body moved before his mind could object. Years of combat training overriding 3 years of trying to forget. He sprinted through the crowd, shoving aside a Krellian merchant, vaulting over a display of exotic fruits. The child looked up startled as this strange human rushed toward her. Marcus grabbed the girl, spinning to put his back to the containers just as the world erupted in fire and thunder. The plasma charge detonated with enough force to vaporize the shipping containers and send a wave of superheated shrapnel across the marketplace. Marcus felt the impacts across his back and shoulders, each one a spike of agony as the fragments tore through his clothing and embedded in his flesh. His body shield protected the child completely, though the force of the blast sent them both tumbling across the ground. The marketplace descended into chaos. Screams in a dozen languages filled, the air as smoke and debris clouded everything. Marcus tried to push himself up to check on the child, but his strength was fading. Blood pooled beneath him, mixing with the strange purple fluid from damaged alien merchandise. The child was crying, but she appeared unharmed, her small hands pressed against his chest as if trying to hold him together. Through the growing darkness, Marcus saw them approaching, tall figures in ceremonial armor, moving with military precision through the chaos. Zellarian Imperial Guards, their energy weapons drawn, and faces hidden behind reflective visors. As consciousness slipped away, Marcus wondered if he'd saved the child only to be executed for touching Zellarian royalty. When Marcus awoke, he found himself in a medical facility unlike anything on Vertex Prime. The walls were crystalline, humming, with a subtle energy that seemed to accelerate his healing. His back, which should have been a ruin of shrapnel and burns, only ached with the deep soreness of rapid regeneration. More concerning were the dozen Imperial guards surrounding his bed, their weapons not quite pointed at him but certainly ready. A woman entered the room and the guards immediately straightened to attention. She wore flowing robes that seemed to shift between colors, and her silver skin bore the intricate markings of Zellarian nobility. Her violet eyes, the same shade as the child's, studied Marcus with an intensity that made him acutely aware he was probably in significant trouble. "You saved my daughter," she said in perfectly accented English, her voice carrying notes that seemed to resonate in frequencies humans shouldn't be able to hear. "The human who threw himself into death's path for a Zellarian child. Do you know how unprecedented this is?" Marcus tried to sit up, wincing at the movement. I saw a kid in danger. Didn't matter what species she was. Didn't matter. The woman's expression shifted, something like wonder crossing her features. You are either remarkably noble or remarkably stupid, Marcus Chen. The fact that she knew his name shouldn't have surprised him, but it did. How do you know who you are? We investigated thoroughly. Former Earth Coalition forces, specialized in counter-terrorism operations. Decorated veteran of the Proxima conflicts. Then a sudden discharge under classified circumstances, followed by 3 years of self-imposed exile on Vertex Prime. She moved closer, her presence somehow both regal and dangerous. You interest me, Marcus Chen. Look, Ambassador. How? Did you know I was an ambassador? Marcus gestured weakly at the guards. The security detail, the way you carry yourself, the diplomatic markers on your robe that you probably think humans can't see. I may have left the military, but I haven't forgotten how to observe. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Ambassador Liara Voss, chief negotiator for the Zalarian Empire in the Outer Rim territories. And that child you saved? She is my only daughter, Myra. The weight of the situation settled on Marcus's shoulders. The Zalarians were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their technology centuries ahead of Earth's. They were also notoriously xenophobic, barely tolerating other species and never allowing them into their inner circles. He'd saved a Zalarian noble's child, which meant he was now part of something much larger than a random terrorist attack. The explosion wasn't random, Marcus said, his tactical mind already working through the angles. 3 operatives, professional spacing, and they knew exactly where your daughter would be. This was an assassination attempt. Liara's eyes narrowed. What makes you think that? Because I've planned similar operations. The plasma charge was Kelavan military grade, not something you'd find on the black market. The timing was too perfect, the escape routes too clean. Someone wanted your daughter dead and wanted it to look like a terrorist attack. The ambassador exchanged glances with her guard captain. You see much for a simple mechanic. I fix things, Marcus replied. Sometimes that means understanding how they were broken in the first place. Before Liara could respond, the door burst open. A small figure rushed past the guards who seemed momentarily unsure whether to stop her. Myra, the child from the marketplace, threw herself at Marcus's bedside, her small hands gripping his arm. You're awake, she exclaimed in accented English. Mother said you might die, but I knew you wouldn't. Humans are too stubborn to die, that's what teacher says. Myra, Liara's voice carried a warning, but the child ignored it. You saved me, Myra continued, her violet eyes wide with hero worship. Father always said other species were weak, but you're not weak at all. You're like the heroes in the old stories. Marcus found himself smiling despite the situation. Just did what anyone would do, kid. No, Liara said quietly. No, they wouldn't. In the past 5 months, there have been 3 attempts on our lives. The Galactic Council's security forces have been useless. My own people seem incapable of thinking beyond traditional protocols. But you, a human with no stake in our politics, no reason to care, threw yourself into death's path for a child you'd never met. She paused, seeming to come to a decision. I have a proposition for you, Marcus Chen. The diplomatic crisis, the Zalarian diplomatic compound occupied an entire section of Vertex Prime's upper tier, a realm of crystal spires and flowing water, features that seemed to defy the station's artificial gravity. Marcus stood in Liara's private office, still adjusting to the formal clothing her staff had provided. A blend of human fashion and Zalarian ceremonial dress that somehow worked. 3 days had passed since the marketplace bombing. 3 days. Of medical treatment with technology that made Earth's best hospitals look like medieval barbershops. 3 days of watching Liara navigate an increasingly dangerous political landscape while pretending everything was normal. The Galactic Council convenes tomorrow, Liara explained, her fingers dancing over a holographic display showing trade routes and military positions. We're negotiating a new treaty that would open Zalarian technology markets to younger species, including Earth. Marcus studied the display, his tactical mind immediately identifying several strategic concerns. Your hardliners won't like that. Zalarians have maintained technological superiority for centuries. which is precisely why someone wants me dead. Liara's expression darkened. If Myra or I die before the treaty is signed, the progressive faction loses its strongest voice. The isolationists win, and the galaxy remains divided. So we're not just dealing with an assassination attempt, Marcus said. This is about preventing galactic unity. Liara nodded, then pulled up another display, security footage from the past 5 months. Each attempt has been different. Poisoned atmosphere in my quarters, a navigation malfunction that nearly sent our shuttle into Vertex Prime's fusion core, and now the marketplace bombing. Someone with significant resources wants us dead. Marcus watched the footage, noting patterns the original investigators had missed. Your security protocols are predictable. Same routes, same procedures, same response patterns. Whoever's doing this has inside knowledge. You're suggesting one of my own people is involved? I'm suggesting someone is feeding information to your enemies. Look here. Marcus highlighted specific moments in the footage. Your security detail always takes 30 seconds to respond to alerts in Section 7. The atmospheric controls in your quarters can be accessed from 3 maintenance panels that aren't under constant surveillance. These aren't lucky guesses. This is intelligence. Before Liara could respond, her communicator chimed urgently. Guard Captain Thex appeared on the display, his usually composed features tight with concern. Ambassador, we have a situation. The human has been summoned to appear before the Council's Security Committee. They're questioning his involvement in the marketplace incident. Liara's skin patterns, subtle bioluminescent traces that Marcus had learned indicated emotion, flared with anger. On what grounds? Suspicious timing, ma'am. A human with combat training just happens to be present during an assassination attempt on Zellarian nobility? Some council members find it convenient. Marcus felt his jaw clench. They think I was part of it. Politics, Liara said dismissively, but Marcus caught the concern in her voice. Someone's trying to separate us. They know you've already identified. Weaknesses they don't want exposed. She turned to the display. Captain, prepare my formal diplomatic transport. If the council wants to question Mr. Chen, they'll do so with me present. The council chambers were a study in organized chaos. Representatives from 43 species filled the amphitheater-style room, each with their own environmental requirements, translators, and cultural protocols. Marcus had seen battlefield command centers with less complexity. At the center of it all sat the Security Committee, 5 beings from different species, each supposedly representing galactic stability. Marcus recognized the Krellian minister, whose species had no love for humans after Earth's aggressive expansion into their former territories. Marcus Chen. The Krellian's translated voice boomed through the chamber. You stand accused of conspiracy in the attempted assassination of Ambassador Liara Voss and her offspring. That's absurd, Liara interjected. But the Krellian raised a chitinous appendage for silence. The human will answer for himself. Mr. Chen, is it not true that you arrived on Vertex Prime 3 years ago, shortly after a classified incident with Earth Coalition forces? Marcus kept his voice steady. Yes. And is it not true that you've been working in the lower districts, establishing connections with various criminal elements? I work as a mechanic. My customers come from all walks of life, including known smugglers, mercenaries, and individuals with anti-council sentiments. Marcus felt Liara tense beside him. This was a setup, but he couldn't see the angle yet. My employer runs a legitimate business. We don't run background checks on everyone who needs a power coupling replaced. The Krellian's mandibles clicked. What? Passed for a smile among his species. Yet you recognized a military-grade plasma charge in seconds. You identified tactical positions, escape routes, and threat assessments that our trained investigators missed. Either you're remarkably gifted, or you had prior knowledge. Or, Marcus said, his patience wearing thin, I'm a trained soldier who spent 6 years identifying and neutralizing exactly these kinds of threats. The fact that your investigators missed obvious tactical elements says more about their competence than my involvement. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Insulting the Council's security forces wasn't diplomatic. But Marcus was tired of playing politics while someone was actively trying to kill Liara and Myra. A new voice entered the conversation, smooth, cultured and dripping with false concern. Perhaps we should consider all possibilities. Marcus turned to see a tall Zalarian male in elaborate robes approaching the committee. His skin bore the markings of high nobility, but something about him set Marcus's instincts on edge. "Counselor, Siran," Liara said, her voice carefully neutral. "I wasn't aware you were involved in security matters. When they concern the safety of our people, all matters are my concern." Siran's violet eyes fixed on Marcus. "This human story is quite remarkable. A disgraced soldier who happens to save a Zalarian child, earning the trust of our chief negotiator, just as crucial treaty negotiations begin. One might call it suspicious. One might call it heroic," Liara countered, "or strategic." Zoran produced a datapad. "I've been investigating Mr. Chen's background. The classified incident that ended his military career. Would you care to share those details with the Council?" Marcus felt the trap closing. The Century campaign's final mission was still classified, the details sealed by Earth Coalition Command. If he revealed the truth, he'd be violating security protocols. If he remained silent, he'd appear guilty. "The details are classified for good reason," Marcus said carefully. "But I can say that I chose to disobey orders that would have resulted in unnecessary civilian casualties." "Ah yes, the noble human narrative." Saran's smile was cold. "Always the heroes of their own stories. But what if I told the Council that your civilian casualties were actually Zalarian intelligence operatives? What if your act of conscience was actually enough?" Liara's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "Counselor Zeran, you seem remarkably well informed about classified Earth military operations. Perhaps the Security Committee should investigate how you obtained such information." The tension in the chamber ratcheted up another notch. Marcus watched the interplay between Liara and Zoran, recognizing the deeper currents at work. This wasn't just about him, or even the assassination attempts. This was about the future of Zalarian society, and its place in the galaxy. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The massive viewing screens that normally showed stellar maps suddenly displayed emergency warnings in multiple languages. "Security breach in the ambassador's compound." Captain Thex's voice echoed through the communication system. "Someone's attempting to access Myra's location." Liara was moving before the message finished, her guards falling into formation around her. Marcus followed, ignoring the Security Committee's calls to remain. Politics could wait. A child was in danger. They raced through Vertex Prime's corridors, Marcus's mind already running tactical scenarios. This was another distraction, another layer to the plot. Someone had orchestrated the Council hearing to separate them from Myra, leaving her vulnerable. The final confrontation. The ambassador's compound was in chaos when they arrived. Security systems were failing in cascade, doors cycling open and closed randomly, and the environmental controls were fluctuating wildly. Marcus recognized the pattern immediately. Someone had introduced a virus into the compound's central AI. "Where's Myra?" Liara demanded, her usual composure cracking. "Safe room 7, Captain Thex reported, his armor scarred from what looked like energy weapon fire. "But we've lost contact with her guardian detail. The virus is blocking all internal communications." Marcus pulled out his personal toolkit, old-fashioned hardware that couldn't be hacked or disrupted. "I need access to the maintenance tunnels. The virus is electronic, but I can navigate manually." "Those tunnels are a maze," Thex protested. "Without the AI guidance, I memorized the layout 3 days ago," Marcus interrupted. "Part of my security assessment. Give me 10 minutes. Liara grabbed his arm as he turned to go. "Marcus, if something happens to her, nothing will happen to her," he said, meeting her eyes. "I promise." The maintenance tunnels were dark, lit only by emergency phosphorescent strips that cast everything in an eerie green glow. Marcus moved quickly but carefully, counting junctions and turns, building a mental map as he went. The virus had disabled most of the automated systems, but that worked in his favor. Any ambush would have to be manual. He heard them before he saw them, voices speaking in hushed tones, the distinctive whine of charging energy weapons. Marcus crept closer using skills he'd hoped to never need again. 3 figures in modified combat gear stood outside Safe Room 7's maintenance access. Their armor bore no insignia, but Marcus recognized the configuration. Military grade, expensive, and definitely not standard criminal equipment. How much longer? One asked in accented galactic standard. The virus should crack the Safe Room's independent systems in 3 minutes, another replied. Then we grab the child and leave through the prepared route. What about the mother? Zoran. Wants her alive to watch, says it will break her spirit before the council vote. Marcus felt cold fury wash over him. Zoran, of course. The counselor had access, motive, and the resources to orchestrate everything. But knowing and proving were different things, and right now Marcus had a child to save. He studied the 3 operatives' positions, calculating angles and timing. In his prime, with full combat gear, this would have been straightforward. Now, with only basic tools and 3 years of rust, it would be challenging. Marcus pulled a fusion cutter from his toolkit, modified its output to create a blinding flash, and counted to 3. The flash filled the tunnel with searing white light. Marcus moved immediately, muscle memory taking over. The first operative went down to a strike to the nerve cluster at the base of his neck. The second managed to raise his weapon before Marcus's thrown wrench caught him in the temple. The third, recovering from the flash, fired wildly. Marcus rolled under the energy bolts, came up inside the operative's guard, and introduced his knee to the man's solar plexus. 15 seconds, 3 down. Not his best time, but acceptable. The safe room door was already showing signs of electronic intrusion, display panels flickering with corrupted code. Marcus bypassed the main controls, instead using his fusion cutter to access the manual release hidden behind a maintenance panel. The door slid open with a grinding mechanical sound. Inside, Myra stood bravely in front of 2 younger Zalarian children, diplomatic staff's kids, Marcus realized. Her small hands were raised, and incredibly, she was generating a weak energy field trying to protect the others. Marcus, she cried, the field dropping as she ran to him. I knew you'd come. Always, kid. But we need to move now. He gathered all 3 children, carrying the youngest while Myra held tight to his free. And the route back would be dangerous. By now, Zoran's people would know their team had failed. They emerged from the tunnels into a firefight. Liara's guards were engaged with a dozen armored figures, energy bolts lighting up the compound's main corridor. Marcus spotted Liara behind an overturned decorative pillar, her ceremonial robes singed from near misses. Stay here, he told the children, securing them in an alcove. Don't move until I come back. Marcus had no weapons, no armor, nothing but determination and the absolute certainty that he wasn't going to let these people win. He grabbed a fallen guard's energy rifle, checked its charge, and entered the battle. The first 3 shots took down operatives who were focused on Liara's position. The 4th and 5th created cover for Captain Thex to advance. By the 6th shot, Zoran's forces realized they had a new problem. Marcus moved like he had in the old days, fluid, precise, lethal. Every shot counted, every movement had purpose. He wasn't just fighting, he was sending a message. Humans might be newcomers to the galactic stage, but they'd learned warfare in the crucible of their own world's conflicts. The tide turned quickly. Zoran's mercenaries, faced with renewed resistance and a human who fought like a demon, began falling back. Within minutes, the corridor was secure. Myra! Liara rushed past everyone, gathering her daughter into a fierce embrace. The other children ran to their parents, and for a moment the compound was filled with tearful reunions instead of combat. Marcus stood apart, the energy rifle still in his hands, watching the perimeter. The soldier in him knew this wasn't over. Zoran wouldn't give up this easily. Mr. Chen, Captain Thex approached, his tone respectful for the first time. That was impressive. It was necessary, Marcus replied, but Zoran's still out there. This won't end until he's stopped. Then we stop him, Liara said, still holding Myra, but her voice hard with determination. We have the evidence now. The mercenaries, the virus, the conspiracy. The council will have to listen. Marcus shook his head. He'll deny everything. The mercenaries won't talk. The virus can't be traced to him directly. We need more. Then what do you suggest? Marcus looked at Myra, an idea forming. We give him what he wants, an opportunity he can't resist. The council chamber was packed for the treaty vote. Every representative, dozens of media outlets, and hundreds of observers filled the amphitheater. At the center, Liara stood at the speaker's podium, preparing to make her final argument for Zalarian-human cooperation. Marcus watched from the security station, Captain Thex beside him. They'd spent the night preparing, setting their trap with careful precision. She's exposed, Thex worried. If Zoran makes his move, he will, Marcus assured him. His pride won't let him resist. The treaty vote, maximum public attention, Liara vulnerable at the podium. It's everything he wants. As if on cue, Marcus's scanner detected an energy signature in the chamber's upper maintenance level. There, northwest corner above the atmospheric processors. I see him, Thex confirmed. One operative setting up a sniper position. Wait, Marcus ordered. We need Zoran to implicate himself. Below, Liara began her speech, her voice carrying through the chamber with passionate conviction. She spoke of unity, of shared knowledge, of a galaxy where species lifted each other up rather than holding each other back. It was beautiful, inspiring, and Marcus found himself believing in her vision even as he watched for threats. Zoran rose from his seat among the Zalarian delegation. A point of order, Ambassador. Liara paused, her expression neutral. Yes, Counselor? Before this vote proceeds, the Council should know that Ambassador Voss has been compromised. Her judgment has been clouded by her attachment to a human. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Marcus tensed but held position. Are you referring to Mr. Chen? Liara asked calmly. The human who saved my daughter's life? Who exposed the security failures that nearly cost us everything? Yes, I value his counsel. His perspective has been invaluable. His perspective? Zoran laughed coldly. He's manipulated you, turned you, into a puppet for human expansion. The treaty you're proposing would give humans access to technology they're not ready for, weapons they'd use against us. The only one talking about weapons is you, Counselor, Liara replied. Perhaps because you've been so focused on using them yourself? Zoran's expression darkened. Careful, Ambassador. Accusations without proof. Oh, I have proof, Liara said, her voice carrying clearly. Would you like me to present it now, or would you prefer to make your final move first? The chamber went silent. Marcus watched Zoran's skin patterns fluctuate. Anger, calculation, desperation. You have no proof, because there's nothing to prove, Zoran said, but his hand moved to his communicator. That was the signal. Marcus saw the sniper adjust his position, the energy rifle powering up for a killing shot. Now, Marcus ordered. Captain Thex's team moved with perfect precision. The sniper was neutralized before he could fire, his weapon and equipment secured. As evidence, simultaneously security forces throughout the chamber moved to block exits. Marcus dropped from the maintenance level, landing on the main floor in full view of the assembly. He carried the sniper's rifle, its energy signature still, registering on every security scanner in the room. Counselor Zoran, Marcus announced, his voice carrying over the shocked murmurs. This weapon was configured to your personal biometric signature. Only you could have authorized its use. Zoran stood frozen, his carefully constructed plan crumbling around him. This is a setup. The only setup, Liara interrupted, was yours. We knew you'd try again. We counted on your arrogance, your certainty that other species were inferior. You couldn't resist the opportunity for a public execution. You have no idea what you've done, Zoran snarled, his composure finally breaking. The Zalarian Empire was meant to lead, not dilute itself with inferior species. Humans are chaos incarnate. They'll destroy everything we've built. What we've built Marcus said, stepping forward, is stagnation. I've been here 3 weeks, and I've seen it clearly. Your technology is superior, but you've stopped innovating. Your culture is ancient, but you've stopped growing. You're so afraid of change that you'd rather kill children than risk evolution. He turned to address the full council. Humans might be chaotic, but chaos drives adaptation. We make mistakes, but we learn from them. We fight, but we also forgive. And when we see a child in danger, any child of any species, we don't calculate political advantage. We act. Pretty words from a killer, Zoran spat. Tell them about Century, Chen. Tell them what humans really are. Marcus met his gaze steadily. On Century, I refused to fire on a civilian shelter that intelligence claimed housed enemy combatants. I was right. It was full of refugees, including Zalarian observers documenting war crimes. My refusal saved 300 lives but ended my military career. I chose conscience over orders, just like I chose to save Myra over my own safety. He looked around the chamber. That's what humans are. We're not perfect, but we try to be better. And isn't that what this treaty is about? Not perfection, but the attempt to be better together than we are apart. The chamber erupted in discussion. When order was finally restored and the vote was called, the treaty passed by an overwhelming majority. Later, in the aftermath of Zoran's arrest and the treaty's ratification, Marcus found himself on the observation deck where it had all started weeks ago. Vertex Prime sprawled below, its lights twinkling like terrestrial stars. You're leaving, Liara said, joining him at the viewport. It wasn't a question. My job's done. You're safe, the treaty's signed, and the conspiracy's exposed. That's not what I hired you for anymore, she said softly. Somewhere between the marketplace and today, the job changed. Marcus turned to her. Liara, I know, she interrupted. A human and a Zalarian, it's complicated, maybe impossible. But didn't we just prove that impossible things are worth attempting? Before Marcus could respond, Myra appeared, running across the deck to hug his legs. You can't leave. Who will teach me human games? Who will protect Mother when she makes boring speeches? Your mother doesn't need protection, Marcus said, kneeling to Myra's level. She's the strongest person I know. But she's happier with you here, Myra said with a child's simple honesty. The patterns on her skin glow differently when you're around. And you're happier too. You smile now. Marcus looked up at Liara, seeing the truth in her violet eyes. The soldier who'd come to Vertex Prime to hide had found something worth fighting for. The woman who'd hired a bodyguard had found a partner. The treaty includes provisions for human advisors to Zalarian diplomatic missions, Liara said, a smile playing at her lips. The position comes with full diplomatic immunity, comfortable quarters, and regular exposure to precocious Zalarian children who insist on learning human martial arts. Is that a job offer? It's whatever you want it to be. Marcus stood. Myra, still attached to his leg. He thought about his empty apartment in the lower district, his simple job at Crix's shop, the quiet life he'd built to avoid feeling. Then he looked at Liara and Myra, at the future they represented, complicated, challenging, but alive with possibility. When do I start? Myra cheered, Liara smiled, and Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. The galaxy was vast, full of different species, cultures, and challenges. But it was also full of connections waiting to be made, bridges waiting to be built, and children of all species who deserved a future where differences were celebrated, rather than feared. As the three of them stood together looking out at the stars, Marcus realized that sometimes the best way to save the world wasn't with weapons or politics, but with simple acts of courage that reminded everyone what they were fighting for. The human who'd thrown himself in front of death to save an alien child had started something that day in the marketplace. Not just a diplomatic revolution or a conspiracy exposed, but a proof of concept. That beings from different worlds could choose each other, protect each other, and maybe even love each other. It wasn't the ending Marcus had expected when he'd left Earth 3 years ago. But then again, the best stories never ended the way anyone expected. They ended with new beginnings, with hope triumphant over fear, and with the understanding that in a galaxy full of differences, the things that united them, courage, compassion, and the instinct to protect the innocent, were universal. Human, Zalarian, or any other species, they all shared one fundamental truth. They were better together than apart. And that, Marcus thought as Myra dragged him and Liara toward the viewport to watch a ship launch, was a future worth fighting for.